Hi everyone. Today we have a guest on our channel. She is an ex-national bowler and a bowling World Open champion. Let's welcome her. Hi, welcome Joey. Thanks for accepting the invite for this interview. For the viewers out there who are not familiar with you, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Joey. I used to be a national bowler. I joined the national development squad in 2015. Oh, no, sorry. No, I joined it in 2012, actually. And then I have just recently retired in 2022 or 2021 because I'm actually pursuing medical school right now and I'm in my first year.
Yep. So you were actually part of the NDS, like National Development Squad from about 10 years ago. And then how long did it take you to get into the national team from NDS?
Yeah, I actually started bowling when I was 8, so that was primary 2. And then I trained with the school and private training. And then back then we had COE as well. So I was training there for some time and I made the squad in I can't remember, it was 2011 or 2012. It was quite a while back. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it's quite interesting because in your journey in bowling, a lot of things happen and you actually win quite a lot of medals even in the early days as well, right? So is there any interesting moments in this 10 years as a national bowler that you'd like to share with us?
There have definitely been too many moments for me to count, but I think for me, the thing I enjoyed most about bowling was bowling as a team. So earlier on, because I joined the team, like my team was full of senior bowlers, where I was actually the youngest for quite a while. And then my first outing with them was to the Asian Games in 2014. And actually we won the team gold. And that was a huge thing for us because it was a big scale tournament. And I think that was one of my most memorable times. Yeah. And then after that, I continued to bowl with them for at least a good 4 to 5 years. Yeah.
And I guess the team bonding bit in Singapore bowling is actually a big thing. What I noticed in the males team and as well as the females team, right? How do you actually work on that part? Because I think that is one of the strong things that we have in Singapore bowling.
I think one thing is that we train together a lot. So back when I was training full-time or at least part-time as a student, we would train every day on the lanes at least 2 to 3 hours. And then about 3 times a week, we would actually go to the gym together. So a good part of our day is spent together. And as well, when we compete, we are practically roommates. We spend our entire day together. We eat meals together. And as well as bowling, it's a very much team sport when you're talking about championship style. So we communicate a lot regarding what our plans are, how we're actually going to approach gameplay today. It's definitely not as much team-based as probably soccer or basketball that people imagine, but actually bowling is very much a team sport when you're not talking about individual events. Yeah.
And you mentioned that you started really, really early, like 8 years old, right? So and you only retired last year. So it's only been about 15, 16 years, right? Was there any fondest memory that you have about bowling?
I think bowling for me, it was definitely my passion. I'm not sure if I can say it still is my passion because I haven't bowled for quite a while, but when I was doing it, I enjoyed every moment of it. It wasn't like a chore or anything. Actually, I looked forward to training at the end of the day because I would go to school in the morning and then I would have to go through my usual student duties. And then after that, I would go for training at night, which many people might find tiring, but for me, actually, that was the highlight of my day. So if I were to think about any favorite memories, I think it would mostly be when I was competing with my teammates, especially when we went overseas and whatnot, because the atmosphere there is very different from then when you're bowling in Singapore. Yeah.
Like in the sense that because when you're overseas, that's all you have, right? The team is all you have, and bowling in Singapore, that's other people that's giving you support, your family, your friends, and even people in your school as well, right? Yep. But when you mentioned about training and competition, what's the big difference for you?
I think training for us, especially when it's not, say, peak season. So if we're not gearing up for a tournament, training is really a very safe space to try out different things. Let's say you're working on your physical game. It's where you can, not have that pressure of scores. You can really truly focus on what you're doing, making sure it's right. And then if you're talking about equipment or figuring out how to approach the lane, there's also a lot of time for you to experiment. And if you're working with a coach who you are comfortable with, they can always give you feedback on whether what you're doing is right or not. So training is for when you learn new things and when you can practice them for you to use in competition. So every time we bowl a competition, we will actually see what works. And then if it doesn't work, you reflect and then you bring it back into training. And then you see how you can improve on what you need to improve on.
So like your game A and game B and game C kind of strategy as well.
Yeah.
But for training, right? Is there anything that you normally focus on, and why do you focus on those areas?
I think it really differs from time to time, because sometimes you're working on your physical game. Maybe you've changed something and it just doesn't feel right. Or maybe sometimes you just have a bad day and then you just want to work on things that brings you back to basics, because sometimes when we are competing for too long a period of time, we tend to fall back into bad habits. So after you go for a long period of competition, you come back to training, it's kind of just good to bring everything back to basics, get all your foundations right, because sometimes you do tend to lose track of that. Yeah. And then when it's coming to competition skills, it's actually learning to be familiar with what bowling balls you have, being able to be versatile and play different parts of the lane, because every competition will have a different skill set required. So it's making sure that you're comfortable with all the different tools that you have in your toolbox, so that when you go out there, if your game A doesn't work, you need a plan B, plan C, plan D, etc. Yeah.
So definitely working not only on your physical game, but the other aspects of the game, like how to adjust accordingly and the different lane conditions and to prepare for the different competitions that is coming up. So I guess for the SEA Games, that's why they're actually doing the games on different centers and on different oiling patterns to see the the ability to be more versatile on different conditions and oiling patterns as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But so other than the physical part of bowling and the technical part of bowling, right? So based on your experience, how much does the mental aspect play a part in bowling for you?
Mental aspect is definitely a big part of bowling, actually, because bowling is not a sport whereby you need to be physically strong. Strength is not going to win you in bowling, it's not going to get you to throw a perfect game. So once you fine-tune, or once you get a certain baseline of physical game and technicalities with regards to adjustments and whatnot, definitely the mental game is what will bring you to a next level. Because bowling is physically tiring. I mean, okay, maybe not as much as other sports, but our tournaments can drag on for 4 or 5 hours, and being focused to make every single shot good, it wears you down after a while. And you definitely need to know how you can bring yourself back to focus. And especially when you're under a high pressure situation, if you need to strike to win that match, if you need to pick up all your spares to win that match, you need to be strong mentally, and as well as have techniques to bring you back to, focus after you made a bad shot. You need to kind of let it go, and you need to just focus on the next thing, because looking back on the bad shots and holding on to that is not going to help you move forward, and you need to be able to do that. Yeah.
So focusing on the good shots and recovery from the bad shots as well.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of techniques that you use or things that you do to help you with those areas?
I think for me, I just constantly remind myself that, if you have made a bad shot, if you bowled a bad game, it's over. Harping on it is not going to change anything. It's not going to give you back that strike. It's not going to bring you back that spare. So what you can do is just to focus on moving forward and look how you can make the next game or just the next shot better, actually. Yeah, my mantra is kind of just one shot at a time, because having that projection of wanting to bowl well is definitely at the back of your mind, but you thinking about that is not going to help you improve, or it's not going to help you get to your goal. Because if you're already thinking about throwing 3 strikes in a row, you need to put the first one there. And for me, I just focus on what is currently in front of me, which is just my 10 pins and the one shot that I am making at that very moment in time.
So focusing on the next shot, focusing on the next shot itself. Yeah, and I agree that different bowlers should have different mantras, and some of them might be staying relaxed, staying loose, whatever works. I think different people use different kind of mantras or self-talk that they use within their games as well. But what are, if for a young bowler or for someone who wishes to come into the national team as well, right? What are some key points that you would advise them to focus on?
I think when it comes to younger bowlers or junior bowlers, actually, I think it's more of figuring out what works for them. Because especially when you're at that young stage, there's I think the focus is a lot different on foundations versus really a lot more advanced tools that you have. So I would focus on ensuring that they get their foundations right, the foundations of their physical game, making sure they understand how to adjust to the lane, let's say you have a cross pocket shot, what is your next move? And they kind of need to be independent to be able to make those movements themselves and not constantly have to rely on somebody, because we're not always going to have a coach behind us to guide us. We need to be able to read our shots and be decisive on what moves you're going to make and then execute it. So every competition, or in fact every training session, is an experience. You make a move, if it works, great. You know that you have that at the back of your pocket. But if you make a move and then it doesn't work, then you analyze it and say, okay, I know this didn't work. I'm going to learn from it. Next time I won't do the same thing. And then you just keep on learning these skills and bring them along with you as you progress, because those are learning from experience is something you can only do across time, and it's how you can constantly improve yourself.
So making sure that the foundations are there and building up the experience as they go, be it in practice, in competition, and not letting bad moves or take this experience as lessons to build them up further, right?
Yep.
And I guess, since we're on the topic of lessons, right? So and you mentioned earlier that you have retired as a national bowler and now you're pursuing your medical degree as well. But from this journey as a national athlete, right? How did these experiences help you in this other aspects of life? I think because that's quite an interesting bit for this young athletes to know as well.
Sports is great. It teaches you a lot of life skills. Being able to be resilient when challenges come your way. You need to be able to stand up and face to them. You can't just shy away, because in life, unfortunately, we're not able to do that every time. You have to face your demons and you have to move forward. So definitely bowling, it taught me to be very independent and work hard for what I want to achieve. And another more practical aspect, I guess, it taught me a lot of time management, because I had to be very focused. I had to cram a lot of hours into my set 24-hour day, because we're all only given 24 hours. But I chose to pursue a lot more things than people normally do. So, when I was competing overseas, I would bring along my work with me. I have to study in between days, in between games. So that didn't set me back from achieving my goals. And I think, bringing that drive forward for me and the rest of my career is something that's going to really help me, because I have been there, I have done a lot more, and I know that, that will bring me forward. Yeah.
And I guess that's a similar experience, being a student, and as well as being a national athlete as well. That's quite a common and similar experience that a lot of those who are in NDS and even some of them in the national team would go through as well, because some of them might be still going through their university, right? And with that, I guess, it's learning from the sport, like what you mentioned, to be more resilient and independent, and that time management, how to navigate across all the other aspects of life as well. Seeing that even now, your degree will definitely keep you very busy with many things that you have to do as well. So before we end, is there any last tips that you would like to give to our young bowlers who are aspiring to get into the national team?
I think one thing I will remind you is to stay level-headed and stay humble, because every competition you win is a step closer to you achieving greater heights. But at the same time, you need to remember that there are always bigger tournaments out there. There is always a new field of people to play with. Every competition is different. You're going to be bowling on different lane surfaces, different oiling patterns. There's definitely going to be something that is your weaker spot and is someone else's advantage. So you need to remain calm and humble and not let one win or one championship, get over your head. You still need to come back to basics and focus on what you need to do at every game, every shot. Yeah, but definitely, hold that win close to you and let you keep motivating yourself to move forward, because if you have that drive, I think you would succeed.
So my last question is, will we be able to catch you on the SBF Masters that's coming up? I think in a couple of weeks, right?
I have not touched my bowling ball since I stopped bowling, so I think that has been a good at least 8 months that I've not bowled, so I don't think so. I might pop by to say hi to my friends, but that's if COVID restrictions allow me to.
Yeah, because I saw that notice and I thought that would be quite an interesting one to see different bowlers and of the past, and because they are not allowing the current national athletes, but yeah, the ex bowlers. I think that's something that would be quite interesting to see as well. So thank you so much, Joey, for helping out with this interview. Yeah, and I really wish you the best for your studies and enjoy playing with your dog. Yeah.
Thanks for having me. It was great. Nice.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Bye.
Okay. Bye bye.